Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another episode of Big Hairy News. And do you know I'm so excited about Thursdays, Chewy?
End of the week. Thursday.
No, because what do we do on Fridays? What did we do last Friday? And what are we doing tomorrow, maybe on Friday? What are our Fridays turning into? Testing.
Oh. But, I mean, you say turning into. You've done it once.
No, twice. And this is going to be the third one.
Oh,
Going for it. Testing some EVs. Friday, it's called Friday Fun, the Testing EV saga. We should do a little blog if we do another one and send it out to the patrons. Talking about our patrons, we'll get to our patrons very shortly. But even though it's not even finished yet, I want to say hello to Wellington Rocks. Wellington Rocks signed up to be a patron like 2 minutes ago. Bless you. We'll get to the patrons in a little bit, because we love you to bits and we want to give due credit. What we're also going to do right now, oh, look at me, Joe. I haven't even got up my screen yet because we've got 3 screens up there and I got all confused, is say this is the very last night for you to get free merch off us. Well, the last night for this month. So if you head to bhnshop.nz, in fact, let's run the banner that we ran last night so it can remind people all through the show so much that it'll annoy you to go in there and absolutely do it. There it is. So our merch for this month, and look, I know some of you who watch us every night might be getting a bit sick of this, but the reason I'll mention it a couple of times is because we're giving away merch, free merch, if people buy merch during the live stream. bhnshop.nz. We've got the regular BHN merch. We've got the regular hoodies and t-shirts there. We've also got personalised gear. Means you can have BHN. And that's been really popular, Chewy, actually. It's been quite gratifying to see people who want to have their names on their asses of our hoodies. Lovely. Remember, if you do want a personalised top, to click the personalised option. They're a little bit more expensive because we get charged a bit more to put the name on the back. But also this new line we're doing probably for the year. It's called Buffer. And the printer was printing out last week's ones today, team. So if you ordered one last week, you might be getting it in the post tomorrow and to you by the middle of next week, hopefully. Should we just show people, Chewy? Let's just show people, because we keep saying what it is. This was a conversation we had with Professor Margaret Mutu, and this was the question that Chewy asked. And that led to our...
There's a lot of talk with people that watch our show and that sort of thing about what the best... What in your opinion, what's the most effective way the Pākehā can support Māori in this fight so that they don't feel like they're doing it all by...
I'm still a bit jealous of this question, Joey. And like I said before, when you hear me going, yep, that's because I'm trying to get a little bit of the glory of a brilliant question, but you can own it. I'll give it to you.
By themselves.
Good question.
Oh, thank you very much for that question.
Great question.
Because it's one of the things my Ngāti Kahu, so I'm the chair of Ngāti Kahu way up in the far north, and I've asked them what instructions that I could take to Tūranga Waiwai, and one of them was that we ask our Tauiwi allies, which includes our Pākehā allies, if they could please come and help us by being a buffer between us and the Crown, and challenge the government, challenge the Crown, because if you can see what's happening to us, for heaven's sake, instead of us having to say it, because they don't listen to us, instead of us having to say it, would you please say it?
So there you go. Professor Margaret Mutu says, for non-Māori, if you could be a buffer, hence the brand Buffer. Now, Māori, you can buy it too. You know, let's not have apartheid here and say only non-Māori can buy this merch, anyone can buy it. But that's actually the heart behind it. If you want to kind of put something out there in the world, little code word just for us. This isn't branded with BHN gear. There's a little tiny BHN logo kind of at the base of the U, but it's tiny. So we're not branding it BHN. We're doing buffer gear. There'll be probably a different color every single month. This month's color is called Sky Blue, or Pale Sky, with a blue word across front. So if you want some buffer gear, it's there. Hoodies, t-shirts. If you want some free merch, which is the Beardy Boy stuff, black on black, blue on yellow, and caps. What I'll do for people who order during the live stream, while stocks last, if you order like a large t-shirt, my first option will be throwing in a free large t-shirt of this gear. If there's no large t-shirts, I'll throw in a free cap. If there's no caps, I'll throw in a free something that then you can give to someone else because it's not your size. Fair enough. bhnshop.nz, the buffer gear's there, the BHN gear's there, and during the show, so we've got about an hour left to get that free merch thrown to you as well, and they'll be getting sent out at some stage next week for people who have ordered this week. All right, Chewy, I think that's it. Is there any other? I've got a fridge for sale as well. Does anyone need a fridge? And I've just bought
Welcome to BHN Buy, Sell and Exchange.
I've just bought my kids new beds, and so I've got a whole bunch of the mattresses. If you need a mattress, I could put one of those in an envelope and send it to you as well. We got lots of things we can do. Hey, let's rip into this conversation around school lunches. It's one of the big conversations of this week from the School of Health Sciences at the University of New Zealand. It's called now, Chewy. It says Massey University, University of New Zealand. Associate Professor Dr Bevan Erueti joins us. Bevan, good evening to you, sir.
Kia ora, pō manaho ki a korua, ki a tātou katoa. Welcome, everyone. It's good to be here.
Yeah, man, thanks for joining us. We're stoked to have you, because this has been a really interesting conversation this week, and we're sort of, political tragics and sort of political nerds, and we often look at the policy and match it up to what's being said and what's happening, but we don't have the expertise as to, why are school lunches good? We can use research that what we read and then pass it on, but we thought let's get the expert on to throw you the ball and just basically talk to us about school lunches. Open runway. Why is it so good for these kids to be getting school lunches?
Well, so the earlier research indicated that food-related initiatives, particularly those centered on, things like collective engagement, those things contribute to just well-being beyond providing calories and nutrients. They also, food as an item in our culture, it just facilitates social connection and a sense of belonging. That's what we are as Kiwis and as New Zealanders. What we decided to do is that we wanted to look at the differing ways in which this school and lunches, the Kaore Ka Ako program, is being delivered. And as you've pointed out earlier in your social commentary, and that's what I was trying to interrupt with, I've been loving the social commentary that you've been providing on this. Thanks, and giving it the visibility that it has, is that there are two differing delivering systems. 80% of the schools, around about, give or take 5%, using an external source or a third organisation that are providing those lunches. The other 20% are facilitating that delivery of school lunches internally. That is, that they have a commercialised kitchen provided, and that's the unique nature of the school that we went into, that we had a look at. And Dannyburg High School used to be a boarding school. So yes, they've got the facilities. Yes, they had a dining room beforehand, but it was in such a disrepair, kind of in a non-functioning way. It was just a location for the kids to go and hang out. Yeah. When they started putting together the lunch and schools program, they started getting the funding, they decided that they would become the kitchen again. And so they reinitiated and rebranded that dining hall to be a wharekai. Now, I don't need to tell two learned people like yourselves, and I just saw the clip around Margaret Mutu, and to say what a wharekai is and what it does for a community. But in the marae, the wharekai is the location of where both formal and informal learning occurs. There are things of tikanga and kawa that happen in the marae that are learnt there, but they're not always a part of what's being stated overtly. There's implicit learning that happens inside of that wharekai. We call it tea towel tanga in Te Ao Māori. You grab a tea towel and you do your work, No one's telling you to grab that tea towel. You just do it. And then from that come the stories and the interactions and the engagement to follow what's being taught to you. You follow others in their roles and responsibilities. So I've digressed ever so slightly, but that's how we viewed what Dannyburg was doing. That's why they call it a wharekai, because there are things going on in that room, in that dining hall, that go beyond some of the data grabbing, the quantitative numbers that just can't measure some of this impact. So
Yeah,
we wanted to
can I jump in? Because what I was going to say is it's actually quite an easy concept to get, because how many times do you hear, oh, the kitchen is the heart of our home? That's something that we all already do. And what we've been watching in the commentary from, well, not commentary, but the policy from the legislators is ignoring the research that points to community wellness and community good. It seems like David Seymour wants to have a tangible, measurable KPI that has a number at the end with a decimal point in it, and it goes from X.0 to X.0, and he can see the improvement. Now, I'm not going to ask you why is he ignoring the research, but he seems to be ignoring the research. And so one of the things, as you've already started, we want to get you on to talk about is actually what does the research say, even though it's less tangible, as you're explaining.
So once again, just listening to you both over the last few nights, thinking about our conversation tonight, what's being missed here is the concepts that we see reflected when we went and visited Dannyburg High School. The idea around specific KPIs and a number around achievement it's a tough correlation to make between, lunch food. I understand food and achievement, food and direct attendance. But there's been a couple of things that have happened more recently, right, that have obstructed this idea around connection, a global pandemic for one. So one of the aspects around the data that we're starting to see is that we're still coming out of that pandemic. So that achievement data needs to be looked at a little bit differently as well. We also know too that there are a lot of variables that play into achievement. Look, if we were to talk about our varied backgrounds, the three of us, we would have three different stories around our own learned education and what that education led to. We would talk about perhaps the impact of people, teachers, and so forth. And so what we wanted to do is to see if we could highlight those things, like that relationship building that is happening when you're around the table. When my family and I, we take the time to eat around the table. It always stops at 5:30 to 6:30, and we just try to catch up with one another. Sometimes that needs to happen at school, and the reason it needs to happen at school is that what decades of research has shown us, we're talking 20, 30, 40 years of built up research around achievement, is that the teacher-student relationship is one of the most important variables and elements to education and achievement. This wharekai provides another avenue and vehicle for teachers to sit with students. They're not doing the punitive thing like, hey, you owe me a detention, you should be at this location, make sure you've done your homework. They leave that outside the door. And the teachers are talking about, hey, how's your day? Hey, I saw you playing rugby the other day. How's that going? Now, we would hope that stuff would happen anyway, but sometimes it's not because teachers are busy. But this time to sit down, we're seeing a real connection and relationship that's being built around that idea of informal education. Now, there are a couple of other links here too, that perhaps the minister might need to take heed of, and that is that in the curriculum, there are these things called the key competencies. And these key competencies, there are 5, 6 of them that help underpin what we're trying to get young people to learn. They kind of act as a guide towards, I suppose, what we would refer to in the university system as a graduating profile. And so a couple of those key competencies are how to manage self and relating to others. Now, that wharekai does a couple of those things too. For instance, these kids are saying thank you to the cooks, to the chefs, to those in the kitchen. They're clearing the tables. They are wiping down the tables. They are getting drinks for their teachers. They're asking Miss and Mr. and Sir, do they want a drink? There are some things that are going on that actually are linked to the curriculum that we want to learn. Informal learning episodes like inside the classroom or in the PE lesson or even in education outside the classroom, but they're happening informally at interval and lunchtime, and they're seen as really special moments. there's also a really cool link between the peer and peer, the student-student interaction and engagement. Now, one of the rules is no phones. Now, that's kind of right across all Aotearoa, right? But at Dannyburg High School, the phones go away, and these kids they're sitting there for 30, 40 minutes. They're not just eating and getting out of there and doing something else. They're actually just sitting with their mates, and they're catching up. Mates that might not be in their same classrooms. So what we're getting are a couple of concepts that are probably, I was just listening to our Pou Wahine, our Kuia, Margaret Mutu, and the two terms like whanaungatanga, that comes to mind, building relationships. The other one that comes to mind is that tuakana taina, the older and the younger. All year groups are coming together inside of that wharekai. Now, I get it. I understand that we have to have a measurement of some kind. And this is where I've been urging in my discussions, and perhaps it was missed in a couple of clips, but I'm urging the minister to go in and just take a look for himself, to talk with the leadership, to talk with the principal. You saw the principal on the news last night, Di. She's very passionate about this. She talks about how hungry kids are angry kids, hungry kids are unattentive kids. She's seeing a real change because they've got this nutritious type of food, and the food that is utilised is local produce that is brought in from the vendors inside of that community. She's seeing a change in what's going in the classrooms. The teachers are seeing that change. The senior leadership are saying, look, we all know that a full tummy, and by his own words, he said this, that full tummies have better outcomes. So we are just providing a different picture to that, a deeper dive into the experiences. Look, you two know better than me about what it means to draw out experiences and to tell stories. The stories that you both tell and the stories that you get to have on your podcast and in your show, that stories are a powerful way to get across a message. And so that's what we wanted to do, is just to tell that deeper story. So we're getting that whole idea of, maybe there are things that could be or should be taught in the home, but the kids are understanding that if that's what's expected of them at school, then perhaps it could lead to something elsewhere as well. So they're doing all of that kind of mahi, that work themselves. Look, the kids were absolutely awesome. We probably interviewed, probably something like 6 focus groups. So we got to around about 25, 30 kids. We spoke to teachers right across, deputy principal. So, that case study approach just allows us to get a deeper look into what's going on, into some of those, dare I say it, the things that aren't captured by the numbers.
Like, I'm just taken aback by just your description of like this holistic way of looking at it, right? You couldn't have described something more different from my school experience. But I'm just sitting here wondering, a lot of what we see in these neoliberal programs and this very much like balance sheet driven way of looking at these things is there is no cultural aspect to it. Or if there is, it's from a very singular white Western neoliberal nuclear family, everyone's their own little island sort of way of looking at things. And I think this is just, you couldn't ask for a more stark difference. And everything that you said, to me, as someone that has a very different upbringing, schooling, cultural background, that sort of thing, everything you said just goes, yeah, that absolutely makes sense. All of
it
that
makes sense,
tracks.
doesn't it? It makes sense from that perspective that it's kind of what we've been missing in education. Like as a social constructivist approach in me would say that all learning all learning has a social process. That's the formal stuff, like I keep on saying, the stuff that happens that's driven by learning outcomes and objectives and meeting, standardized test marks and grades and NCA. There's that element to it. But what we're starting to see, or what we can start to see from our engagement with Dannevirke High School, is that there are some other outcomes that once again lead to that idea around social mobility, the idea around being a citizen that would contribute back to society in whatever way those kids choose to lead in their journey and trajectory in their future lives. But we can't take those things for granted, not just by a didactic approach with a teacher saying, do these things. There are some other ways to provide that modelling. And this is what the whare does very, very well. You've pointed out something that I should probably talk about and address, this idea around what the minister said about the data. We should only compare, or make comparisons between similar social economic status schools and those who are doing the same kind of approach to the delivery. So, for instance, it wouldn't be fair to look at Dannevirke High School and then look at, say, a local school here like Palmerston North Boys High School. It's completely different. It's got different students, and so you are going to get achievement data that is different. And of course, he's going to look at that and go, well, they didn't have lunch in schools, and they're doing fine. But the point is that when we want people to at least have the opportunity, where's our actual altruism here? The whole idea around providing a level playing field, and in terms of allowing kids to at least start off with that idea that they can all eat at school, regardless of what background they have. And that's what I'm afraid that the minister's doing, is he's looking at data that with schools that don't provide lunches, but it has to be like for like and same for same. We want to do that deep dive too. We want to have a look at that as well. And so the Ministry of Education has approached us to give consideration to that, and we want to have a look at that too and tell some more stories about that. We know that there's going to be similarities across the like schools.
I mean, I'm thinking of I guess the closest example I have personally in my upbringing of that sort of community involvement around food, and as close as I can get is the cadet forces. Like when I was an air cadet and that sort of thing, and we would be in a mess hall doing the same thing, and that's what's tweaking my memory there. And it was consuming food together, it was preparing food, cleaning up after each other, all of that sort of thing, and it built community and a shared purpose. And I'm linking that now because, of course, the current government has a real, for lack of a better word, hard on for military style boot camps, because that's what they're thinking of, right? That joining people together as a unit with a joint focus, and all they've got is the boot camp phrase of things, almost the hazing, the breaking down and building back up. They don't look at the community aspects of that sort of environment either. It's just, and everything that they're measuring is on too short of a time scale. Like if you're trying to make any sort of impact into that age group, that the learner's age group, you can't put it in a 3-year bottle and go, that program was a success. You have to follow them all the way through.
You do have to follow them all the way through, and that's another consideration that the minister needs to give thought to. The idea that we're going to see change within a few years is equivalent to saying that we would give teachers a small window to improve achievement. The idea around food, once again, the lunch in schools, ka ora ka ako, is to provide everyone with that same starting point, at least to be able to learn appropriately inside of a classroom. Look, we probably had friends that were going to school with no lunches, right? We probably had friends that would look at our lunch, or I would look at someone's lunch and go, wow, the stigma that I had, that shame I had of even not having lunch or pulling out my lunch and looking at someone else's. You know, we've seen those adverts before on TV. We've seen that. This allows that stigma to be removed. That idea of shame to be removed as well. So those ideas haven't been considered, and that's what needs to happen over that long-term kind of, once again, qualitative, in-depth kind of case study look at the ka o te kāko.
You brought me to another point there. We're going to hide it in language like targeting and highest need and that sort of thing, because that's great, right? We're cutting costs. We're focusing the money. Who really needs it? And that sounds great, but that also brings more admin and more barriers. And exactly what you remember, like, I really tweaked my memory there of sitting down with my mates in the opening of the lunch boxes and just going, oh, fuck, stink. I wish I had. This lunch looks great. I got, brown bread and cheese. Not great, and when there's no because you can imagine that of like, oh, sorry, only the poor kids get to go and get the free lunch. It's like a backhanded compliment. It would still make you feel shitty.
Yeah.
So
and that's
the idea of the whole school.
The whole school, right? And that was important too. So, for instance, Danny Burke High School, once they started the lunch and schools program, they shifted away. They moved away from the tuck shop, right? The idea of the tuck shop. So they closed the tuck shop, and what they found is that kids were spending less money. Whānau were happy that they weren't giving their kids so much money to buy this food. As another aspect of that, of what's being kind of seen, an observation by the principal, the teachers, and by the students, is that there's less waste around the school. So I understand, once again, we're talking about one of the schools in the 20% that cook their food on site within a commercialized kitchen. Look, if you wanted to, I think we've shared our YouTube, if not, I can share it. But we did a YouTube 12-minute kind of doco on it. We wanted to do it because we wanted to give it back to the school and say, look, we want to get you out there. But the food looks like cafe-styled food. It's almost like the minister is jealous of getting these kids getting these amazing meals. My point is there is that with this internal kitchen, there has been a change in the environment as well around the school. There's less rubbish. We're seeing additional benefits around attentiveness in class, the focus, all those kinds of things. So I'm being repetitive now, but that's where we really wanted to focus on that whole holistic well-being idea of the school, including its environment.
I'm sorry I ducked out. My internet went down for 3 or 4 minutes, so I had to go. But I was actually listening to you on my phone, so I got most of that as well. And I think it's probably time for us to wrap up and say thanks for being here. I just wanted to say one thing, though, about the tuck shop conversation. If you move away from the tuck shops and you get to more sit-down eating, the problem is what you can't do then is you can't buy the donuts with that powdered sugar on top. And when your friend wants a bite, you hold it like that and then blow the sugar in his face. You know how that was always a fun thing at the tuck shop? No, but in all seriousness, when you were describing Dargaville High, I went to boarding school. So I went to Sacred Heart College in East Auckland, and I never even thought about it, but I thought that experience is actually what I had at boarding school. We'd all sit down and have lunch. We'd have breakfast and dinner as well. And so, yeah, it painted a really interesting picture. And just to say as well, before we wrap up, and I don't want to play politics, meaning we know that when politics side A doesn't want something, they talk out against it, even if it's being hypocritical. But guys like you and guys like the teachers and the principals, who are in this instance the front office or the front line, that the government's being so keen to make sure they know that in all their cutbacks, we're going to listen to the front line. We're not going to touch the front line. They're the most important people. When they want to get rid of something like this to pay for their tax cuts, all of a sudden you guys aren't giving them the right research. So thank you for coming on and giving us some of the research, Bevan. We appreciate that. And we'll keep talking about it.
Thank you, gentlemen, and to everyone listening. Hey, we'll just have to see what happens in the next month, and hopefully we've done enough to make it visible. Thank you to you both. Appreciate it.
All the best.
Thank you, mate.
My apologies. Should we stay like this, or should we do this? Are people going to be a bit freaked out if we stay like this?
God, back to normal.
Does it work? Are we okay?
I'm just glad that I didn't freeze up.
You shat your pants, didn't you?
Oh,
you were
shit.
Like,
oh, fuck.
I've got first time. What are we? We're probably 700 shows in, I'm guessing 600 shows. First time that I've cut out. Yeah, my internet went down. Like I looked at my phone and I was on 5G and I'm like, oh crap, have I paid the bill? Speaking of bills, hey patrons. No, that's too cheesy. No, that's too cheesy. But what it might mean is I might have to. I've now got to share my screen again, and when you get locked out of your internet for a sec or your internet goes down, everything you've queued up might not be quite in the right spot. So we'll fingers crossed with that one. But let's get to some of the chats that came in as we were out there. Peter sends in a $2 super chat that just says Picard mode damage report from Peter in his $2 chat. Thank you for that. Lurchify says our homes are our principal marae. Our marae are our principal homes. The same applies to school for kids. Yeah, I mean, if it's somewhere you're going to be spending 35 hours a week, it is like one of your principal places to live.
And I want to mention something about that as well. Yep. It's like, again, it's this European white supremacist view of there is nothing that we can learn from Māori. The European way is the best way. And it's not. It's not. There are things from both sides. There are combinations. There are lessons to be learned from everyone. And Europeans used to do this as well.
Yeah, what I was going to say is
communal sort of things, like your experience in boarding school.
Yeah,
my experience in the cadets, and I guess in the latter half of the 20th century, we've really lost that, and we really lost that with the idea of the nuclear family and the idea that we didn't need community.
Yeah.
We there will be people that would have heard the professor talking and go, oh, I don't like those words, the Māori words, blah, 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 blah. There will be people that are put off just by that through ignorance or something worse.
Or racism.
There are things to be learned from both sides. And I think about my lunch experience at my high school, at my primary school and that sort of thing. And you know what? The idea of communal eating sounds pretty fucking good.
Yeah. Now honestly, I remember it back, and I also went and did a leadership course in Northland at Lee, in this little settlement up north, and we all ate together. And I guess what we see around here sometimes, Chewy, like my 17-year-old's at university this year for the first year, and they have a thing called the locals. Because what happens in the colleges, and for people who are outside the colleges are what they call the dorms. They call them the colleges. They all spend a lot of time together in the first semester, the first term. They're the ones, you'd see walking buses of 18-year-olds going around Dunedin, all from the same college. And so they do it as well. So my 17-year-old goes to the locals one. So the people who live in Dunedin, who haven't got 100 of their mates around them straight away, make sure they find a way to get community as well. It's really interesting. And I think eating together is always a really important thing. Honestly, it's like every culture, every religion, everything. It's like the meal.
It's universal.
The meal, yeah. And when you, I mean, I guess I kind of when you talk about it's not a European thing. It's not a white English. It's not an English thing. But like I've spent a lot of my life in the Spanish community. And their grandparents live with them, and it's a very different vibe. The English, though, yeah, there you go. English, Irish, Scottish. It's a bit different, and also it's a
class thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Interesting.
So maybe a little bit clumsy with my description there.
No. Because when we talk about Europeans, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the ancestors of colonizers primarily, which are the English. So that's pretty much it. Citizen Gold, evening or late fee. Thank you for the $5. Kooky Nick, pay the late fee or don't. $2.
He's not the police.
No. Cool. So yeah, that was great. Thank you. And I was going to apologise for cutting out, but my internet went down. Like my kids were off a tablet for about 4 minutes. Lucky the house hasn't burnt down. Sheesh. We just got an order for some merch from someone who's in Wellington called Mark Mitchell. Do you think it could be?
No.
Yeah, what are the chances?
That's with the real Mark Mitchell. Please stand up. But before we move on as well, a couple of people mentioned this in the chat. Labour have a petition going to save the healthy lunches. That's on their website. If you feel like putting some personal details in, unticking the box to be part of the mailing list, and just adding your name to that, feel free.
Yeah. Out of interest, with what you're looking at in StreamYard, Chewy, do you have end stream in the top right-hand corner? Is there a red button that says end stream?
Yes.
Okay. That's just like if I ever disappeared. If I couldn't get back on, I'm wondering how you would manage. If you could hit end stream, it would end. Okay, that's good. That's all.
No, I just have to awkwardly stay here until the numbers dwindle to zero and I lose
Chewy,
my mind.
I've spoken to Vodafone. They say I'm going to have internet back in 7 hours. We'll see you then, mate. Hey, we said we'd talk about this tonight, and for obvious reasons we are. TVNZ, and actually, ironically, much like when TV3 News Hub gave out their details, we played the TVNZ story. We're going to play the News Hub story about the TVNZ. They've got a bit of a tighter synopsis of the whole thing. Let's have a look at this news release today out of TVNZ.
The media cuts keep coming. Staff at TVNZ were told today that 68 jobs could go.
High-profile programs are at risk, but the government hasn't been asked for extra cash. However, Broadcasting Minister Melissa Lee says she is looking at ways to help the struggling sector. Business correspondent Simon Shepherd reports.
It's midday. More aftershocks in the media industry. Why TVNZ is set to axe up to 68 jobs.
Reporting on your own company's job cuts, an increasingly common event in an increasingly tough time. Staff opened a 9 a.m. email from management to see 9% of the workforce may go. CEO Jodie O'Donnell said tough economic conditions and structural challenges meant they need to reduce the size of our team to bring costs in line with our revenue. The priority is to support our people through that change.
It's a pretty tough thing to talk about, supporting people through the change, when what you're actually saying is, how do we help these people who aren't going to get a paycheck? I mean, that's the more blunt way of saying it. How do we say to those, 60, 70 people, here's your redundancy of 3 months' wages. And oh, by the way, if you want to go and work on the other guys, they're closing everything down as well. So the 3 jobs currently going at RNZ are going to be applied to by 400,000 people, something like that. So, it's a tough one. There's some really interesting things that come out about this, about the story, and like what the government has said. And there is a lot of bone. They talk. My mum used to say that, pointing the bone, like it's point the bone. At David Seymour about some of the things he's been saying, which we'll get to shortly as well.
Staff at high-profile shows like Sunday, Fair Go, One News Tonight and Re have all been called to meetings tomorrow, as have content producers. There is no easy way to communicate such bad news, but I'm told that some staff were in an editorial meeting this morning when the restructuring email came through. They were able to pause, read it, and then carry on working. Union Etu is concerned about the consultation timeframe.
And the indication is that I only have 1 week to respond to that. So we're calling on
Michael Wood, hey? Little old Michael Wood, part of the union, hey?
TVNZ to engage with its workers about this issue rather than dictating the outcome.
With Warner Brothers Discovery planning to shut down News Hub, TVNZ posting a $16.7 million half-year loss and proposing job cuts, the media landscape is changing fast.
Well, I mean, this is going to come back, and there's actually a really interesting point at the end of the story that Melissa Melissa Lee refuses to make. But, you know, for a long time, Chewy, we've been saying TV1 should be ad-free, TV2 should be commercial, and that releases up dollars for the rest of the industry. Ironically, Bomber also made that point a couple of nights ago. So it seems that it's a fairly common theme. So the restructuring of this industry needs to be more than just let's have as few people possible working here as we can afford, because we need a public broadcaster. Like when they say it's lost $16.7 million, the only reason they say that is because they're treating it like a commercial entity. What they should be saying is this public broadcaster cost $16.7 million to run, not it lost $16.7 million. So the thing that sucks is I remember doing this in 2021 when we were talking when kind of COVID hit and all of those all those companies started shutting down. We were saying then, you know, TVNZ, like the merger should have happened. There should be a big newsroom for RNZ and TVNZ. We should be having a free public broadcaster, commercial free. But yeah, anyway, do you want to add anything in our tree? Because we're going to kind of double up on that point in a second anyway.
Bring back broadcasting fee.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I'm totally down for that. Like, honestly, I know some people will rally against it, but in the UK, they certainly used to. I don't know if they still do now. You pay X amount of dollars per year
I think
per
they
TV.
do, but the Tories are really chipping away at that idea, and they're using the same arguments that we used here so many years ago. I joke about a broadcasting fee. It would not work in its previous format, but I think the idea of public funding is so important in New Zealand because we're such a small country to get quality programming, quality news gathering, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Is expensive.
Yeah.
And obviously the traditional revenue gathering ways of advertising, we are a small market. Like, it's something that jumped out at me when my wife and I were watching. We just powered through the traders. We watched all of the British traders and the New Zealand and Australia, and it really stuck out to me that the New Zealand one's prize pool was pitifully small. And my wife was like, "Oh, far out, that's really small." And I'm like, "Yeah." So you're going to advertisers to sponsor your program and contribute to the prize pool, and they go, "Cool. How many eyeballs are you going to put me in front of?"
Yeah.
And you look at your survey data and you go, "Oh, this many?" And they go, "Cool. That's not a lot. We're not going to give you a lot of money." And that's the problem that TVNZ and TV3 have for their whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. But if you think about the broadcasting fee, I mean, if it wasn't per screen but per person, you know, $10 per person is $5.5 million is $55 million. $10 per person. I mean, it's not a lot of money to get to that end game. $20 per piece, well, you're up over $100 million to run your public broadcasting on. I personally, I know some people are going to go, I can't afford that. I'm not going to challenge you on that, but it just seems that there is a better way to do this.
Some people can afford it.
That is true. And what we are looking at now is more user pays media, but there has to be a public broadcaster. There has to be a broadcaster that doesn't rely on getting eyeballs, airballs, that'll do, click-throughs and stuff to survive. They at the top of their pyramid has to be reporting the news and telling New Zealand stories. Whereas the top of any other one, at the top of the thing is make enough money to cover, right? And that has to be and should be the top of a commercial entity, because if you don't hit that top target, then the rest falls over. Every country must have a news media that tells local stories. That doesn't matter if it's only for 4% of the community, because it's not seeking eyeballs to make money, and to have an independent news media that isn't going to tell a particular story about a particular family who owns a whole bunch of childcare places with a bias because that's where the money's come from. We have to. There's no question. We have to have that. Now, the question is, how are we going to do that? And I have to be honest, it scares me that this government in particular is in charge of this transition right now. But we will see. We'll keep going on the story, eh?
Yep.
And it is because you've got underlying changes in consumer habits and demands and consumption patterns. You've got business models that are having to be reinvented along the way. And as a result, we know it's a really difficult time.
One commentator is expecting more cuts to come and says government needs to address everything from tax to transmission to outdated media laws.
They shouldn't look at things piecemeal. They should be looking across that broad spectrum and pushing multiple levers at the same time.
The Broadcasting Minister is taking a paper to Cabinet, and when asked whether the collapse of advertising revenue meant...
Very, very interesting here, Chewy. You know, when they say they told us without telling us, like this is a good, very, very interesting. You have a listen to what she will not answer and why.
TVNZ should be commercial free, she said.
I can't actually talk about something that may be in the Cabinet paper.
Should TVNZ be commercial free? I can't talk about that because, like, what happens if it might be in a current Cabinet paper? Really
That's interesting.
Really, really interesting. We'll get to the end of the story.
But I can actually tell you that I'm actually working with my officials to look at ways that we can potentially help the sector.
That won't come in time for TVNZ staff who are bracing for the details tomorrow. Simon Shepherd.
So there you go. Now, there's a couple of other things I want to bounce off the back of this as well. And it's not in that story. It's in a different story, so we'll keep going. So there was a point where what David Seymour has said when Christopher Luxon goes, I didn't hear the comments, and it's another, but I've got it queued up the wrong way around, but we'll do that in a minute. So there you go. TVNZ, 68 jobs, 9% of their workforce, which feels small actually. I thought that means TVNZ workforce is about 700. I thought it would have been bigger through the whole country, but there you go. But yeah, it must stay, and as does RNZ, it must stay, and I think it should be a proper public broadcast. We've been calling for this for 2, 3, 4 years. Shall we?
What I reckon. All right, I'm in charge of TVNZ now.
Nationalise it.
One of the things, this government loves looking over its shoulder for ideas from the past. So here it is. TV to save money. TV transmission stops at 12 o'clock.
Right.
12 p.m.
Right.
Okay, we're not going to have infomercials. We're not going to have bullshit, that sort of thing. We'll just switch everything off to save power. We bring back TV Kiwi. So that's so everybody knows that they're up too late if they see TV Kiwi. And then after the TV Kiwi cartoon finishes, there's another video, and it's just Christopher Luxon sitting in a big chair next to a fire, and he goes, "Time to go to bed, New Zealand. Got work in the morning." And then he just stares at you until you go to bed. How about that?
I like it. One of the greatest ever television shows is The Young Ones. Like, I probably know half of The Young Ones episodes off by heart. Every now and again, I pull up episode 1 on YouTube, and I still have it all the way through. I know word for word for word. And the reason I mentioned it is there's a scene, and I've just Googled it, I can't find it, it doesn't come up. There's a scene where Neil is watching the end of broadcasting, and they ask Neil what he's watching. He's obviously stoned, and he goes, because it goes down to this dot, and it's got a really cool vibe, and it goes down, it goes zoom to the dot, and then it starts going, and Neil just starts dancing to the. But anyway, side note, tangent that I couldn't mean for Phil.
Oh, I'm going to tangent off your tangent,
okay,
my
then.
friend. I'm going to tangent off your tangent. You're going to bring up The Young Ones. I'm going to bring up Monty Python. I am going to bring up the decades of absolutely unhinged sketch comedy out of the BBC. The only reason that stuff exists is because there was no advertising sensibilities to offend.
Yeah. People
just went, I would like some public money to do some nonsense. And they went, sure. And we got Monty Python.
But that's the point. That's the point about not worrying about eyes. It's like just doing stuff, just telling stories, just giving money to groups to do things. Obviously, when I say giving money, it has to come from somewhere, but that's why it needs to be properly funded. So the reason I'm a bit concerned about this government doing it is they may be talking about ad-free. It sounds like they might be. Don't know, but it sounds like it because she was pretty cagey about it. And if they are, they'll be wanting to get bang for the buck, and they'll get their KPIs in there, and they'll want to know the numbers. And it's not how you get like that. It's not how you get the next New Zealand version of Monty Python. We all know the Flight of the Conchords story. How none of the stations in New Zealand would touch them, so they went off to the UK and did it on BBC Radio. Then they went to America and did it on HBO, I think, and it was a worldwide smash. But mind you, in saying that, if they had have done it in New Zealand, it probably wouldn't have been a worldwide smash. There was something about how they did it there. But anyway,
we should be up to season 15 of The Adventures of Randy Campbell, classic New Zealand stuntman. But we're not, because we're not brave enough. I have zero trust in this government to make a sensible decision around broadcasting, but I am happy. I will be ecstatic to be wrong.
And I guess the other thing is, if they do go down that path of public broadcasting, when the next lot, if they only do a half-assed job but it keeps it, then the next lot can come along and fix it up. So
I think the important thing here is if we let's extrapolate this out. If we lose our broadcasting, our news gathering, and especially our public broadcaster, it is almost impossible to build that back up again.
Yeah, 100%, because all the infrastructure won't be there. Well, let's truck through, because there's a couple of other things that bounce off the back of this as well. Summer Rain, thank you for the very generous super chat, $17. White girl in South Auckland, good grades. I went to school without food. My friends would give me their food to pretend I had food. My friends thought they were protecting me. I wish I felt equal. Interesting story. Appreciate the deep thoughts. I also want to say a huge thanks to all our patrons for being with us. Love you guys to bits. You help us keep us in, ivory back scratches. A couple of newbies on there today. In fact, several newbies, I think. Josh Colenso down there and Tanya D down there on the coffee runners. And I think there was a couple more over. Oh, come on, Mickety Mouse, get over there. I think Rachel Devereaux. There's a new one as well in there as well. So a whole bunch of people are doing that. If you want to be a part of what we do, if you're enjoying what we do, if you appreciate it and you want to help support us, pay the odd bill here and there, patreon.com/big hairy news is how you can become a part of the whānau. And also, of course, remember last night tonight for that merch, which you'll get free merch thrown in with it. That's bhnshop.nz. Right, Chili. Yep.
Hey, Pat,
yep.
You know how we've got just an automatic chat filter on the YouTube?
Yep.
Doesn't let everything through, especially if you just rage hammer the keyboard.
Yep.
Sometimes I like to add them to a board of just like the greatest hits.
Yeah.
Would you like to
withheld comments?
Yeah, withheld comments. Would you like to know the one that I just seen pop up?
Please.
Chat. Would you like to know what it is?
Please.
I'm going to tell you. I'm imagining that this is directed at the two of us, by the way, Pat. And I'm going to do a dramatic reading.
Okay.
Time for justice for you sick, woke, pedophile Labour groomers.
Hang on. Only about 3 out of 4 of those are correct. But anyway, keep going.
That's it. Fantastic. Thanks for your time. We've read it out, but nobody else is going to see it. And time out for 3 weeks.
Okay, yeah, good one. It is interesting, eh? I mean, I'm not going to talk about what happened the other day that you and I talked about the other one, but I do find it interesting that the people who you hear so often from the right that they want to have. We're just asking questions. We're just having reasonable debate. You know, we might disagree with you on trans issues, but we have the right to have a and then you get the same sort of part of the sector doing that sort of thing. It's like, well, I'll say it. I've always said it. Just come at us with facts and figures. I didn't vote Labour. Did you vote Labour? So there's one that's wrong. You know, I do groom, like every night before I come on.
Look at how straight that beard is.
I brush my beard. Right.
It also draws a point about to the sort of media and opinion that person consumes.
Yeah.
Because that's very, but like calling people groomers is definitely a right wing and American thing.
Yeah.
Same with the pedophile thing,
and
the fact that apparently we voted Labour. Sure. Yeah. Come back, call us cucks or
neckbeard,
soy boys or neckbeard. Fuck, man, look at me. Do you think I haven't been called names before in my 43 years of stalking this planet?
Don't use the word stalking, because now you'll be a stalker as well.
Wrong phrasing. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry
All right, we're going to keep going.
Bad phrasing.
Because there's another part of the story, which is fucking David Seymour.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
David Seymour is running rings around. Like, the word that I have for Christopher Luxon is feckless. You know, Bomber was very clear a couple of nights ago that Winston Peters, but particularly David Seymour, is doing what he wants, saying what he wants, and you can just see that he is the cat that's got the cream. He doesn't give a fuck. You know how you talk about really wealthy people having fuck you money? David Seymour has fuck you power right now over Christopher Luxon. Honestly, it's just a thing to behold. Let's have a look.
Crown Entities Minister David Seymour is refusing to back away from comments criticising how a TVNZ journalist reported on Christopher Luxon's accommodation allowance.
That's despite Seymour being a shareholding minister, which expressly forbids him directing the broadcaster on editorial matters. Here's political editor Jenna Lynch.
Never turning down an opportunity to get in front of a camera.
Alrighty, how can I help?
Not a sorry in sight. David Seymour digging in over media criticism.
Chewy, I don't mean to spoil the surprise, but guess what News Hub do at the end of this story? Don't say it if you think what you know. Guess, and then we'll keep going.
I don't know.
Okay, let's wait and see.
I think part of the problem is some people are letting the side down and have absolutely no capacity for self-reflection.
This morning as TVNZ journalist.
The most ironic statement in the history of the world. David Seymour telling other people they have no ability for self-reflection. Something about pot kettle black, I think, maybe in there.
Were preparing to watch the axe fall on their newsroom. Seymour hit the radio waves and fired a missile at one of its reporters.
Benedict Collins grinning down the camera about Chris Luxon's apartment cost. And, you know, these are the people that cry, oh, you've got to give us sympathy and you're inhumane and you should be kinder to us.
The journalist in question, Benedict Collins, got under...
Who has ever said you have to give us sympathy and be kinder to us? Who has ever... This is Trumpian now because they puts out a narrative that his audience picks up on that then gets to be a withheld comment on our YouTube channel. Because who has ever said that? Be kind to us. This is the narrative he's painting. And no one in government, especially the feckless leader, is pushing back on it.
Seymour's skin during the election campaign by bringing to light past comments of ACT Party candidates comparing vaccine
you mean doing journalism?
Mandates to Nazi concentration camps, among other things.
Benedict Collins doesn't seem to have anything better to do than talk about that.
Now, though, Seymour is a shareholding minister of TVNZ, and it is expressly spelled out in the Television New Zealand Act that no shareholding minister or any other minister may give a direction to TVNZ regarding the gathering or presentation of news.
Have you apologised to the Prime Minister for breaching the TVNZ Act?
Well, of course not. I haven't breached it.
I think politicians have, of all parties, probably think they get unfair treatment from the media, but the bottom line is you play a very important role in our democracy.
Overseeing TVNZ. It's a
Again, I haven't seen the comments.
It's not the only...
Okay, this is a really important thing I want to put out there about a feckless leader. Right, you ready for this? I haven't seen the comments. I'm going to go away and come back in a sec as well.
But the bottom line is you play a very important role in our democracy.
Overseeing TVNZ. It's a
Again, I haven't seen the comments.
Right, I haven't seen the comments. Let me give you... I'm going to give you, when I can find it, evidence number 2. When he was asked about Winston Peters making inappropriate comments, what did Mr. Luxon say?
Luxon, were you comfortable with the comments that Mr. Peters made about the media yesterday?
I didn't see those comments, but I'm excited to get to work with this team.
Feckless. Like, feckless. So his response for these two people who are holding all the power at the moment, when they get out of step, is, I haven't seen the comments. 2 things. You have a terrible press team then, or you're lying. Like, they're the only 2 options. You have a terrible press team or you're lying. And I don't think you've necessarily got a terrible press team. So, but there's two examples of the other two leaders making the coalition who have done things. By the way, that was about the PIJF. That was what the comments he hadn't seen. So it's to do with the media, and it's to do with public money. That was what the other I haven't heard comments about. So this is what he does. He goes, I haven't heard the comments, and he's done it multiple times, and I've just given you evidence for that. Sorry, Cherry, you go.
I think the next stage is if something like that is posed to him again, then the reporter pulls out their phone and goes, "Would you like to see it so I can have you react to it live?"
Yeah,
we have that power at our fingertips now. Yeah. Like this thing of like, I haven't seen the comments. I'm not aware of them. My team hasn't appraised me of it. I haven't read the document. Right. Well, let's do it together, live on air.
Yeah, I'll read it to you, sir. I've got good grammar. We'll keep going.
We need a leader
not the
with
only
an
time.
excessive feck.
Yeah, not feckless.
I'd be much happier to criticize a leader with just, man, he's got too much feck.
Yeah, feck to the power of 10. That's what we want. Feck to the power of 10.
Seymour's taken aim at TVNZ, once complaining they'd found independent experts to interview rather than the ones he suggested, saying, "We put the journalist in touch with a pharmacist, an academic and a drug expert. What did they do? Interviewed 2 pharmacists who opposed the policy." The other tweet taking issue with TVNZ's chief correspondent, quoting and linking to a left-wing blog.
Do you stand by your tweets?
Yeah, I do.
David Seymour decried the death of democracy over Kitty Allen criticising.
Very important point here when he criticises Labor for criticising RNZ. Interesting.
RNZ at her former partner's leaving do. He said at the time there's a real problem when the people who hold the purse strings aren't absolutely critically cautious about even the perception of interfering with the media.
And remember, we are about perceptions here. We have a certain hairless leader about the PIJF, which is to do with the media and stuff, who said this.
Well, for the very reason that it actually leads to perceptions of bias, rightly or wrongly. I just say to you, that's the perception. Whether that's real or not doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter if the perception is real or not. It's a perception. Here is Mr. Seymour saying the perception of interfering with the media is not okay when he's in opposition. When he's in government, though...
Why does that not apply to him?
Well, it actually does. The problem is the accusation is farcical.
TVNZ released a statement saying David Seymour has singled out One News reporter Benedict Collins for doing his job. We're not asking for sympathy, but are asking for our politicians to respect the independence of our media.
Did the Prime Minister talk to David Seymour?
No, I think it is my responsibility as Minister of Broadcasting to have a conversation with him, so I will.
She's spoken to you?
No, she hasn't, and it's not really her job, to be honest, but there you go.
It is his job, though, to keep his nose out of TVNZ's editorial decisions.
Well, our political editor, Jenna Lynch, joins us now. Jenna, is Seymour...
Hang on, I'm going to... I know we don't normally play it to the end, but Jenna's got some good comments here, so we'll play her commentary as well. But there you go. You said it the other night that every time they talk about him, they should show it. They did it again.
Safe in his job?
Sounding like the Prime Minister's not too pleased about it, and fair enough. It is a needless distraction from a minor coalition partner while he's trying to get through his 100-day plan. Christopher Luxon didn't take any action when Winston Peters had a swipe at the media, so kind of set a precedent, although there is a difference here in that David Seymour is a shareholding minister. He bears some ministerial responsibility. Now, as soon as this story is done with, I'm sure we will all hear David Seymour crowing from the rafters that the media is navel-gazing, and reporting this story proves his point. Funny thing is, he didn't think that when he was saying what he said around the Kitty Allen RNZ story. He has created the rod for his own back from his comments back then. If he's looking for someone to blame for this, he should look at himself.
So that's exactly what we've been saying, holding this government accountable to their own standards. And I'm going to play one more thing before we go, Troy, because this is what I'm talking about when I'm like, he has fuck you power over everything at the moment, because this is how he left that stand-up that we saw about. This is from TV1. You just watch how he leaves it. Watch the swagger.
Politicians have, of all parties, probably think they get unfair treatment from the media, but the bottom line is you play a very important role in our democracy.
In response to Seymour's criticism, TVNZ issued a statement saying Benedict Collins was simply doing his job, and that TVNZ is not asking for sympathy, but for politicians to respect the independence of the media so they can get on with their work. To be clear, TVNZ is a commercial company reliant on ad revenue. It is not government funded.
Every time a media outlet goes nuts about a comment like this, they just prove my point that media is lacking the ability to ask the simple question. Maybe it's the way that we're conducting ourselves that's led to our loss of audience share.
And that's what they call doubling down.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Katie Bradford, One News.
So there you go. There's the swagger, the arrogance, I'll say it again, the fuck you power that David Seymour's got at the moment. And that fuck you is actually mostly aimed at Christopher Luxon, who at the moment is coming across as one with not enough feck. His is an inversion.
Weak.
He's a feck inversion.
Weak. He hasn't got control of his own government. He hasn't got control of his department heads. Sorry. Got to use the correct terminology. Just watching that clip of Seymour, what the fuck is wrong with his mouth? Why do his lips not work properly? Yeah. It's very strange. I am here for a news hub with nothing to lose.
Yeah.
I am here for like, fuck, we've got till June. Let's start dropping bombs. I mean, we've directed a fair amount of criticism at Jenna Lynch over our time here on BHN, and we've raised questions about her impartiality due to her partner and that sort of thing. She seemed kind of pissed off about this whole thing.
I think that the media are actually quite a tight-knit group, and I don't mean for those of you out there who want to lick Seymour's bootlickers, that they're in the same bed and they work together. But like we heard, who were we talking to the other night, who said that they were at school? Oh, was it? Anyway, someone who was at college. Oh, it was forget the name of it. I guess it
Clint was talking about being at college with the Bish.
University with the Bish and stuff. They know each other. And look, I mean, whether it's ugly or not, there might be many journalists at News Hub who at one stage were going, I'm eyeing up a job at the state broadcaster, guaranteed money, yada yada yada. But more importantly than that, 300 people from News Hub, 68 people. Not all are going to be news from TVNZ, but let's say half. You're looking at 330, 340 news positions gone from the country. And I don't know, it's like if you played in a rugby team and you had mates who were in the rugby team down the road and their club got cancelled, you'd be like, shit, I'm so sorry for you guys. It's the same sort of thing.
Solidarity, right?
Yeah.
So we've had a show with community and solidarity, like fraternity. Yeah. But look, this is great. I want to see what an angry News Hub has to fire against this government, and if they're going to be dropping bombs for the next couple of months, I am all for it.
Let's have a look. Speaking of this government, I've got a couple of shorties for you tonight as well, because I thought tomorrow is the 100 days, right? And if you guys are friends with Paul the other one, or you follow Paul the other one. Paul Barlow on Sunday.
Content at the moment.
On Sunday night, I'm going to be on his live stream talking about the first 100 days.
Cool.
I'm just going to repeat this. You should come along too, Chewy. We'll all jump in if you want. I'm sure you'll be fine with that. I wanted to have a look at this. This is TVNZ reviewing the first 100 days. Now, they're celebrating. In fact, Chris Bishop celebrated today with the most tone-deaf crayfish lunch to celebrate the 100 days. But if you look at this, what I'm going to ask you, as our hairless leader would say, what I'm saying to you is, what I want to know is what out of these first 100 days are new or inspirational? Like, what have they achieved? What's new? What have they done? Let's have a bit of a look. It's only probably 60 seconds as to what they've got through in this first 100 days.
Some of the most high-profile policies to go up in smoke include anti-smoking laws, which would have seen the purchasing
thank you, Big Tobacco.
Age gradually rise, with the goal of reducing smoking rates to less than 5% by 2025.
So cancelling something.
Three Waters also down the gurgler, giving councils control of water assets. Gang patches are to be banned in
tried and true. Old tech
banned at schools.
No, okay. Well, look, let's be fair. There's something new. So far, their big initiative unnecessary, and very, very, very nanny state, telling principals and schools how they should work. But there's something new. So far, cell phones in schools is their highlight of new legislation.
Legislation allowing all employers to implement 90-day
going back again
trials has also been introduced. And Health Minister Dr Shane Reti called it the start of a new vision for Māori health, introducing a bill to disestablish the Māori Health Authority Te Aka Whai Ora. The clean air discount, offering a rebate for people buying low-emission vehicles, including EVs, has been ditched. Auckland's regional fuel tax is also scrapped.
Yeah, get rid of things.
And the previous government's blanket speed limit reductions reversed, with many state highways back to 100 kilometres an hour. Here's Deputy Political Editor Mikey
So one policy that was new that turns them into a nanny state because it's telling schools they're not allowed to have cell phones in them. There's a thing called Kahoot on the cell phone, which is like a quiz game. The schools use that to help teach their kids. And I'm not saying, so therefore that's the absolute reason to keep them. I can see a good reason not to have cell phones in school. I can see it. But this is the government of freedom. This is the government of personal responsibility. This is the government that wants to keep government out of how you operate things. Well, they're the ones who are making the most draconian nanny status rules for schools at the moment, Chewy. So these are your first 100 days. Cancelled, backwards, ban cell phones, cancelled, backwards. Let's celebrate.
Yeah. And that was definitely worth pushing through a whole lot of stuff under urgency and really eroding our democratic process. Look, I think there's going to be some comments about the use of different governments' use of urgency. I think every time urgency is used, there needs to be quite a bit of pressure. And I don't care what government uses it. Why is urgent? Are you just trying to wrap up business before you go on holiday? Is that really urgent, or is it because you need to free up funding for cyclone relief or earthquake relief? Or is it because we've had New Zealand's biggest ever massacre and we need to make some drastic changes so it never happens again? That's urgent. That is what urgency is for. Not because you made some fucking promises in the election campaign to do stuff in the first 100 days, which is an arbitrary yardstick that you guys seem to put weight on. The voters don't really give a shit about.
Yeah.
That's not what urgency is for.
And then you get this, which is one of the most tone-deaf things that I've ever seen in my life. In fact, I had the link before to Tamapō Tucker, I think it is, talking about austerity. I don't have it. So you've got a government who's making cuts, who is using the word austerity. I'm sorry, I don't know where it's gone, but I had it, which was on an AM show from a while back. And then to celebrate the 100-day marks, Chris Bishop and Laugh celebrated it with crayfish. Now, he said he came out and he got it for free and someone was delivered it to him and it didn't cost him anything, and any of the, he's paying out of his own pocket. It's not going on the ministerial. But there's also the tone deaf nature of what this says to people. Whilst people are thinking about losing their jobs and going out and how to cut back and how to afford the cost of living, he's having a crayfish feast with his staff. I just, you talk about PR sometimes, and that one there is tone deaf, Joey.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. You could have gone out there and caught it yourself. Maybe you had a mate that went and got it, and this seems to be what the case is with this, that he was gifted it. It wasn't like he went down to a restaurant and paid top fucking dollar for it. But it's something called optics. And optics is super important in politics. And maybe off the back of the week that has just been for National, of them high on the hog on taxpayers' dollars, maybe that celebration lunch should have just been fish and chips on paper on Parliament lawn.
Yeah.
Like the optics on that is excellent.
Yeah. Yeah. So because I looked into it, and you're exactly right. In fact, I've got the story here. I'll read it to be fair. Crayfish is on the menu for Chris Bishop as his office celebrates surviving the. It's funny they use the word surviving, like they're cancelling everything else. Maybe they're worried about they're cancelling his office. Surviving the first 100 days of routine celebration of an office, even in the Beehive, typically doesn't make news. But after a whiff of the coming seafood dinner was smelt by a press gallery reporter on Wednesday, questions abound about whether it was appropriate for Bishop to wine and dine his colleagues with crayfish as a cost of living crisis rolls in. Bishop confirmed later, yes, it was a celebration that was planned. No, the seafood was donated and the function would be paid for by him personally. Now, look, cool. It's actually really just about optics. And remember, remember, I've got this now on my cart wall. This is the standard that National sets.
Well, for the very reason that it actually leads to perceptions of bias, rightly or wrongly. I just say to you, that's the perception. Whether that's real or not doesn't really matter.
So this is not necessarily biased, but they're very clear that it doesn't matter if the perception is right or wrong, Chewy. The perception is bad enough. The perception of that is tone deaf. Now, listen, we've got one more story that I want to talk to, but before we do that, and I just want to say one more time, this will be your last chance to get some free merch. bhnshop.nz will probably be done here within 15 minutes. bhnshop.nz, anything in there that you want. We've got the buffer gear. We've got BHN hoodies, either personalised or just straight. We've got BHN t-shirts, personalised or just straight. If you want a personalised one, make sure you click the personalised tab, because they do cost a little bit more. And once we wrap this show up, there are no more free merch. But for everyone who orders, and I'm going to say while stocks last, I'm pretty sure I've got plenty of the other stuff, so there'll be more coming in. But I'll throw something in there. There's black on black t-shirts, there's blue on yellow t-shirts, there's some caps in there as well. I'm not going to tell you what you're going to get exactly, because it depends. If you say I want a large buffer t-shirt, then the first thing I'll try and do is find you a large t-shirt, and if I can match it I will, or I'll throw you a cap, or if I can't match your size or don't have any caps left, then I'll throw you in something that you can give to your partner, or give it to your favourite right-wing friend. There you go, that'd be fun. Favourite right-winger, maybe your favourite Minister for Police. Oh, he might have just ordered one himself, actually. So basically, let's just say till 10:30 to get free merch. Right, Chewy, this is a real interesting one. And this is not just going to go about the story, but I'm going to show us something that's probably yesterday's news, not literally, but a few days ago, because it's something we haven't watched in its entirety, but it's only 2 minutes. Christopher Luxon hosted his Christmas party at Premier House.
Oh, I love this.
Premier House that's in disrepair, Premier House that you cannot live in. Well, he hosted his Christmas party at Premier House and stayed there for a few nights. He hosted up to 25 members. I assume the only way he got those 25 members in was some of them were kind of leaning out the holes in the walls because it's in disrepair. So
masks, hazmat suits.
Yep. For Christmas at Premier House, despite saying the residence wasn't in a fit state. Luxon came under fire last week for claiming a $52,000 annual accommodation allowance while living in his mortgage-free Wellington apartment rather than the Prime Minister's official residence. Now, I'm not going to confirm this, but I saw commentary today that said if he had have been living in Premier House, he wouldn't have been allowed the $52,000.
No.
Now, the distrustful, pessimistic side of me goes, this would be pretty evil. He actually refuses to live there because he wants the $52,000. Like, that would be another level of revolting. Rather than going, well, I can't live there, so I'm taking it. That's one level of revolting. The second layer down would be like, I refuse to live there because I want the money. Hours after telling reporters that he was entitled to the entitlements that everyone else gets, remember, that's not true. Not every MP gets the allowance that he gets, because other MPs get reimbursed their costs. He has no costs. He just gets given a flat fee. So when he says that, it's not the case. Goes on to talk about no longer receiving it. Now, Chewy, this is actually 2 minutes of the press stand-up where it first happened, and we haven't watched this before. And I thought, what a beautiful way to finish off the week, that we actually go back and have a look at this incredibly awkward time.
Oh, I've seen this. It's so cringe.
Point out again the lies that he tells. Now, if I was being fair, I would say that he's not aware. Mind you, he must be, because he would have been an MP last year. So, yeah, he knows, because he would have claimed an allowance last year for his house in Wellington while he was a leader of the opposition, and he would have got reimbursed maybe whatever he paid. But he knows, in my opinion, honest our belief, that not everyone gets what he got, but he is trying to sell it still. Well, back then he was. I just want to watch it. It's a kind of a way to wrap up the week. It's been a big story for this week, and it gives you another 2 minutes to make your order on bhnshop.nz as well. So let's have a look at what he said, and this started the week of conversations off.
Is claiming the accommodation allowance greedy?
Look, it's part of an entitlement for an out of Wellington MP.
Not true.
Whether you're an MP or
not true. What he gets is not an entitlement for any MP. Not true. What he gets is the Prime Minister's. Any MP doesn't get it. Other MPs get that reimburse what they spend. He spent nothing. because his apartment was freehold. So this is not true.
Minister, there's a series of allowances and entitlements, and it's because I don't have a primary residence in Wellington. Like everyone, I travel in and out of Parliament each and every week from my home in Auckland, and it's an entitlement that all MPs and ministers have.
Your government wants to cut unnecessary spending. Isn't it hypocritical to be collecting this money when you don't actually require it? Your house is paid for?
Yeah. Sorry, yes, what's the question?
Don't you think this is hypocritical?
Why?
You're encouraging the rest of the country to...
I actually think he's being honest here. I honestly believe this is a moment he's being honest. Why is it hypocritical that I'm asking everyone to cut back while I'm taking more? Why is it hypocritical? I'm entitled to it. I really honestly believe this is one of the parts where he is actually telling the truth. And this tells us more about the man than anything else. We'll just play the last kind of 5 or 6 seconds again.
Isn't it hypocritical to be collecting this money when you don't actually require it? Your house is paid for?
Sorry, what's the question?
Don't you think this is hypocritical?
Why?
You're encouraging the rest of the country to cut unnecessary spending. You want to...
Unbelievable.
You're cutting back on public services. And then you're collecting money. I mean, it's not necessary.
Yes, but all I'm just saying to you is I want to be able to get to Premier House. I think that'd be really important as Prime Minister. I'd like to live there. Premier House has got maintenance issues and I can't live there at this point in time. And that's why I'm carrying on living on in my apartment. As I said before, all MPs and ministers have entitlements, particularly all those MPs that are living outside of Wellington, which I happen to do. So,
So that was more truthful because he said all MPs have entitlements. But other times he says are entitled to this, which is not true. They do have entitlements. They don't have this entitlement.
The intention is we want to get to Premier House as quickly as we possibly can. For that to happen, we've got to make sure we can get some renovations and some maintenance done there so that we can live in that apartment. And that's what I really want to do. Sorry?
The question was, is it hypocritical?
Look, it's an entitlement that I have as an out-of-town Auckland-based MP, as do many other non-Wellington-based MPs and or ministers. But obviously, my intention is to get to Premier House as quickly as I can. But at the moment, I can't go to Premier House. I live...
It's funny because you could for your big Christmas party and stuff. So, and you won't let journalists inside Premier House to see the disrepair. Almost kind of feels like there's some excuses there maybe.
In Auckland, and I need to live somewhere when I'm in Wellington, and that's why I'll continue to live in my flat.
Do you accept that it doesn't look very good?
Well, what I'm saying to you is I'm trying to explain to you how the situation works, which is that as Prime Minister, it would be awesome to be able to be in Premier House. It's probably not great that we don't have a place that actually has maintenance issues and has renovations and repairs that
right on the verge of blame Labor there.
Are desperately needed in that place. But we're going to work our way through it. It's been a long-standing issue and we've got to find a way through because I would really like to live there. It would be ideal. But at the moment, as an Auckland-based MP who has to come to Wellington to do my job, I would like to live in Premier House, but it's not available to do so. I'm living in my apartment at the moment.
So there you go. We hadn't shown that full
thing. It was good enough for
Jacinda. And a baby.
It was good enough for Jacinda with a new baby.
And it was good enough.
And when he was asked, he said, "Oh, lots happened since Jacinda lived there. What, in 6 to 8 months? What the fuck?" So part of that story of him having that function there is he actually slept there for 2 nights afterwards.
Yeah,
he's quite capable of.
He probably
doing
put
it.
tarpaulin up on the holes in the wall, is what I'm guessing.
Look, we know that MPs put a lot of time in the beehive, in their offices, that sort of thing. He commutes from Auckland. He might spend a couple of nights a week at Premier House. The thing is, Premier House apparently doesn't meet the healthy home standards, which National opposed. So surely it shouldn't be a problem. And he, again and again and again on that Friday, he missed the point that nobody else has taken it for 34 years.
Yep.
That he doesn't need it. It's not an ongoing cost. There might have been an argument to say, "Oh, I'm taking some money to cover the rates for this. It's an ongoing cost of that property." But $52,000 a year is not a realistic cost that he has for having that apartment that he owns freehold. He missed that completely every single fucking time, and he missed the optics. He didn't clock that it was hypocritical, and it is my honest held belief that he had been told beforehand that it was a bad look, and he fucking pushed past it.
Yeah, well, interesting. I'm just writing down "feck to the power of 10" because it could be a good T-shirt. I just think that we got a lesson from Clint Smith earlier in the week when he said he knows how this works, and he said he feels absolutely assured that and this is when he was talking about Nicola Willis and Chris and the Bish, that they would have pushed back against this, and so that means he must have heard it and gone, nah, it's mine, I'm entitled. Like I said, I believe there was some honesty there, and the honesty was when he was trying to go, what do you mean hypocritical? No, I can tell you to cut back, and I can have my entitlement because I'm entitled to my entitlement. Yeah.
Oh, I've just had a thought. With Premier House being, technically speaking, a state house,
yep.
Maybe the maintenance that he's talking about is testing for meth.
Maybe.
Because those state house tenants, man, you can't trust them. They're always cooking meth.
They always talked. I think they pretty much all talked about the empty state houses last year as well. So maybe we should get a solo mum and her family in there. I mean, that'd be a good way to use it.
One of the pieces of history that I love about Premier House is that for a big chunk of time, it was actually a dental surgery, part of the public dental program.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a little tidbit. I want to leave with one story that made me laugh and then made me think a little bit. And this is going to put the cat amongst the pigeons. It certainly did when I was in the chat before the show started.
All right.
Spinoff had a great little article today. Hear me out. Demolish Premier House and make all the MPs live together. See? Funny. Ridiculous. Yeah. But also, so out of Wellington, MPs get an accommodation supplement of what? $45,000 a year if they have to rent a house, an apartment or something to live in because they don't live in Wellington. How many MPs, how much money could we save if we all made them live in an apartment building?
Yeah. Like North Korea. All in the same place. And wear the same clothes. Now we're getting there. Now we're getting there. Now,
in the chat before the show there was some excellent ideas that came out of this. You definitely need communal cooking and relaxation areas.
God, I thought you were going to say showers. I honestly thought the word after communal was going to be showers.
Well, individual bathrooms for every apartment would be expensive. So, this is on the public dollar, man. So that's maybe not a bad idea. It's just a work apartment, right? So they're all studio apartments. It should be fine. But definitely communal cooking, communal spaces and that sort of thing. Now, imagine if there was a chore wheel.
Right.
Can you imagine the arguments because Winston doesn't clean up his 2-minute noodle pots before he fucks off to bed, or that he's been stealing all the teaspoons? So here's another way that we can fund this, right? We fill it full of cameras. It's like the Big Brother house. And that is how we save TVNZ.
I feel like that's a good place to wrap this ridiculous conversation we're having.
Ridiculous.
You're making a mockery of the serious nature of this show. Making a mockery of what we do. Frosty.
We're all laughing, but we're all coming up with ideas.
Thanks for the super chat. Schools already had the choice to remove cell phones. Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Didn't need to happen.
And the technician says amazing interview on Novara Media with Gary Stevenson. Was a top global money trader, now advocate for wealth and equality. Yeah, I've actually got a few emails into him to try and connect with him to come on. Posted link on BHN Discord. All right, there you go. People on we didn't do Discord tonight. Well, it's not happening now, folks. Sorry about that. All right, guys, I think we're done. Now, as you know, something massive. In fact, what we're going to find out tomorrow is the departments at TVNZ that are being restructured. So that's supposed to be coming out tomorrow. And it looks like the late news, 10:30 p.m. Sunday, looks like it could be in there. And Fair Go. It's been around since, I think, 1977. Could be up for some resizing. I still think, bigger picture, guys. Just a big newsroom that does both TVNZ and RNZ. That would probably say, I mean, it sounds horrible because there's still people, but that would be a way of delivering the news with the smallest amount of hiccup, if you know what I'm saying.
Speaking of Sunday, I believe that Sunday is the announcement of the Greens co-leader, by the way.
All right, I guess we know who that's going to be.
And there is a chance that the new Greens co-leader could be a friend of the show.
Well, I'll drop an email to her tomorrow and I'll say, feel like coming on Monday and we'll see what happens. All right, guys. Thanks, Bevan, for coming on. That was great. I'm sorry I disappeared for several minutes, but, you know, I had to take a shit, and I was just pretending that my internet went off.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, it's better than pissing in the studio, which I have done once before. Not during this show. Not during
the
show.
bucket is just out of frame.
Not during the show. I shared too much then. This has gone way off.
You've lowered the tone.
Lowered the tone.
We were serious newsers.
Well, you
now
lowered
we're
the
talking
tone
about peeing in bottles.
When you started talking about friggin' communal showers. I don't know why you started talking about that.
You brought that up.
I did not.
Play the tape back.
Evidence,
You
please.
brought up communal.
I've got the tapes. There will be no.
This
I
is
actually did think that.
Post facts, BHN. Pull the plug before we come to blows. We can't let the public see us fight.
All right, we're out of here. We might be doing some EV driving tomorrow. If you're around Dunedin, just keep an eye out for a couple of beardies flying up the fucking motorway towards Mosgiel at 190 k's an hour, just to go, these are things that got good pickup. I like these things. And other than that, we'll be back Monday night for another edition of Big Hairy News. Lots of drops, lots of clips and stuff through the weekend. Make sure you have subscribed to us on the YouTube. Oh, what have I done? What have you done?
Pat, our commenter from earlier has managed to get something through the filter.
Yeah.
No wonder no one likes us.
I know. People just come along here to mock us. I know. That's all right.
If this guy saw me in public, he'd pull my hair and run away.
I don't care if you all hate us or love us as long as you watch us. It's just the tension we're trying to seek here.
Rage engagement still counts.
All right, guys. We will catch you on Monday night for another edition. As I said, through the weekend. And look, what I'll do is I'll leave the BHN shop up for a couple of days. I'll probably put the orders through on Monday morning. So obviously all the free stuff's gone because it's about to go. It's gone 10:30. But if you're still looking for some merch, all that stuff will be there until Sunday night. You can order it until Sunday night. So if you listen to the podcast Sunday night, you've got until then. And other than that, I'll put the order into the printer on Monday morning first thing. That's us, team. Have fun this weekend. Make sure you come back Monday night. Bring a friend. And until then, I guess I'll just say something stupid like hooroo. Hooroo.
Mātua, fam.